If everyone's settled, good evening. Before we start, could any members or officers in physical attendance with an electronic device please mute it to avoid any feedback. For remote participants, please keep their camera and microphones off unless they wish to speak, as this can affect the quality of the meeting, and this meeting is being live webcast and the recording stays on the council's website. So good evening. I'd like to welcome everyone to this evening's hybrid Sheppey committee meeting, including anyone attending remotely. The following ex-Wildborough Council officers are in attendance. Emma Wiggins to my left, the Director of Generation and Neighbourhoods. Immediately to my right, Policy Engagement Officer Janet Dart, and further to my right, Steph Curtis. I'd also like to welcome Lee Germain and Paul West from the Pyramid Project, who will be given a presentation later in the meeting. We've also got Andy Booth, Councillor Booth and Councillor Whiting. Mike Whiting are also KCC members tonight, as well as SBC councillors.
Good evening, Chair.
Good evening. It's Chris from GNS. Sorry, I didn't see Linda. Sue Simpson's not here, is she? No. Linda Brinklow. Hi, Linda. Ben Poynton's not here. Paul Dave's not here. Simon. Okay, remember, Mike Brown's not here. Pat Sanders not here. No. Okay. Is there any other town councillors here that I've missed?
Yeah, I just wear several hats. But,
okay, you're here as SBC, you're as Minster as well as SBC, Councillor.
Yeah.
Oh, you're from Walden. Okay, thank you.
So can I take your, or have you signed, if you've signed it, that's fine, don't you? Okay, so if you'd like to speak on the item, please raise your hand and I will invite you in turn to speak. Likewise, to anyone attending remotely, please mute the microphones until they are asked to speak and indicate on the instant messenger or raise your hand function if you wish to speak. Thank you. The emergency evacuation procedure, item agenda 1. Please be aware of evacuation procedures to follow in the event of emergency. There are no scheduled tests of the fire alarm during this meeting. If the alarm does sound, please leave the building. Exit is easier. Via the exits and assemble outside as directed. Await instructions before re-entering the building. Should anyone require assistance in evacuating the building, please make an SBC officer aware of any special needs so that suitable arrangements are made in the event of emergency. Okay, thank you. Apologies for absence. Are there any other apologies that Janet hasn't got already or just double checked?
Thank you, Chairman. Councillor Tara, no.
Perfect, thank you.
Thank you. I also have Councillor Elliot Jays and Councillor Pete Neal.
Thank you. Item 3, declaration of interest. Are there any declarations of interest this evening? Councillor Booth.
Yeah, thank you, Chairman. I need to declare that I was the Chairman of the Australian Community Leisure part with regards to the Levelling Up Fund. There is an issue or a comment relating to that, then I will use my discretion.
Thank you. Duly noted. Any others? Councillor Smith.
Yes, good morning, Shares and Council. You're looking at the one. Yes, obviously. Shares and Council companion for that. So just want that to be noted that sort of members of Town Council here.
Noted. Councillor Nuddy.
In terms of item 5, community safety priorities, I sit on the community safety partnership at our council.
Perfect, thank you. Any more? Thank you. Item 4, the minutes of the last meeting. I've been advised there was the correction. Councillor Peter McDonald was present, and I can confirm he definitely was at the last meeting, and his attendance should and will be noted. Thank you, Denise. Do members agree the minutes of the meetings held on the 21st of September, minute numbers 305 to 317 as a correct record with the amendment just mentioned regarding Councillor McDonald? Everyone agreement? Perfect, thank you. Number 5, community safety priorities. I'd like to introduce Steph Curtis, the community safety manager, who will be introducing the next item on community safety priorities. Steph, over to you.
Good evening, everyone. As I've obviously been introduced, I think quite a few of you probably know me already, but for those of you that don't, one of the roles that I have for the council is around coordinating a community safety partnership. We wanted to do a piece of work with you tonight around community safety priority setting. I've been attending each of the area committees to go through this process, so you would be our second one to do this with. Got a couple of slides. I was just going to do a little bit of scene setting more than anything. Not all of you might have heard of the Community Safety Partnership. It is a statutory partnership that is brought together. It was formed in 1998 and it brings together largely public sector agencies. The main focus is around tackling crime, antisocial behaviour, reducing reoffending and substance misuse. In terms of the agencies that sort of have this duty to cooperate, Slough Borough Council was one, along with Kent County Council, the police, fire, health agencies, the Police and Crime Commissioner, and locally we also work very closely with housing associations and the prison cluster. Each year, as part of the partnership role, we have a community safety plan in place. That really stipulates exactly what our priorities are and how we're going to look to address those. And the process by which we go through creating that plan starts this time each year. We will start doing consultation with partners and the public. So obviously part of the reason why I'm here tonight, as well as looking at the data from different agencies to agree in January what our partnership priorities will be, to then look at how we actually turn that into a plan of action. Next slide, please, Janet. So this is going to be very small. But I just wanted to give a little bit of an example of what the current partnership priorities are. They are quite strategic, but within that, there's quite a lot of work that underpins that. The first one is around domestic abuse. The partnership was quite heavily involved in setting up some of the sort of more voluntary sector organisations to support domestic abuse victims sort of 10 plus years ago. So a lot of the work that the partnership does now is just about ongoing promotion of what domestic abuse is and how victims can gain support and making sure that agencies know what those are and play their role. It's also about identifying gaps in services so that we, again, as a collective, can look at how we can try and resolve those. The second priority that we currently have is crime and serious violence. When community safety partnerships were set up, quite a long time ago now, crime was very much the initial focus. So it was around tackling criminal damage, shoplifting, theft from cars. That's transformed sort of more now into looking at serious violence. But as a partnership, we will still tackle location-based problems where there is a crime trend, because it's not actually just down to the police to deal with the offenders. There's quite a lot of work the partners can do to resolve that. Another kind of key part of that at the moment is actually around tackling violence against women and girls, which is a larger agenda than just domestic abuse. But it is about making sure that women and girls feel safe in public spaces, and that, again, as a partnership, there's ways of resolving that. The third one is around antisocial behaviour. So again, that is around, as a collective, making sure that we're supporting sort of victims that are quite high risk of antisocial behaviour, making sure we tackle location-based problems, and working with our partners around that. And then the fourth priority is probably, I say the newer priority, but I suppose a slightly different focus for the partnership in more recent years, is actually around supporting vulnerable people. So that's about raising awareness of some sort of quite hidden issues, so things like modern slavery, trafficking, extremism, making sure that agencies and members of the public know what they are and how to raise concerns. It's also around actually working with individuals that might have quite a lot of complex, that they get the support that they need to resolve that. And kind of, I suppose, underpinning all of that, we have what we call cross-cutting themes, but a lot of that is around communication and training more than anything, because actually we don't want partners working in silo. The whole point of the partnership working is to bring what limited resources agencies have still got together to get the best impact for us, the public. Next slide, please, then, Janet. So that's what we really sort of what I wanted to do tonight with you all. So hopefully you're all up for a little bit of group work, and rather than sort of me talking to you all, and we wanted to make sure that everybody could engage, it was to break you out into small groups of probably 5 or 6 from the number of you, to actually talk about, for the locations that you're here representing, actually what are the community safety issues that your communities are facing, and then as a group what you feel out of those issues should be sort of your top 3 priorities to then feed back into the community safety partnership. I've obviously talked a bit there about some quite high level strategic priorities. If what you want to put forward is actually quite location specific, then that's fine. I believe Inspector Foster did actually come along to the last Sheppey Area Committee to do a bit of an update on the policing work. If you've got, again, very specific problems that you feel maybe aren't being tackled at the moment and they're current, by all means, drop me a line and we can pick those up offline. Yes, sort of for tonight, really, was to just try and get a feel from all of you from the Sheppey area. Actually, what do you think the community safety priorities are for your area? And especially, what would the top 3 for you be? I think when we ran this with one of the other areas, actually 15 minutes for those groups was probably long enough. And if there could be a spokesperson agreed for each group to then do some feedback, then that would be fab. Yeah, it was over to you, really. I don't know whether it's easy to sort of turn some roads around into little groups rather than lines, but if people have to get into groups, maybe sort of 5 or 6.
Sorry, Councillor, Councillor, you've got.
Yeah, I have. Thank you, Stephanie. It's really interesting to see those first bullet points. You made a very important comment about women and girls. There is quite, you all know, there's quite a significant amount of knowledge since COVID about crimes against men and boys. You didn't mention that. Is there a reason for that?
What we've highlighted, well, what I've highlighted, I suppose, in terms of priorities is that higher level stuff of everything that we're looking at. It doesn't mean to say that as partnership agencies, we're not looking at work around men and boys, particularly around the domestic abuse work. A lot of the voluntary sector agencies that we work quite closely with are doing boys. As a partnership, we also get a grant from the Police and Crime Commission, and part of that we are the domestic abuse part actually is quite an interesting one, because actually over the last 10 years that domestic abuse has kind of really become recognised and acknowledged. Actually, yeah, the landscape's changed quite a lot. There is a lot of support in place for victims and survivors, but a lot of the work we do need to do is around changing behaviours and attitudes with boys and men. The other thing to mention on that at the moment is that we're in the 16 days of action against domestic abuse, and part of that is around trying to get men to stand up against violence against women and girls. Part of that, so I could talk for hours about all the work that I think you don't want that. That was the real high level, but equally, I think there's things that weren't on the list and really should be actually. Then throw that forward, and it maybe we just need to make it more prominent.
Thank you.
Councillor Nunley, yes. Sorry, just 2 seconds. Sorry, Councillor Nunley first. Thank you.
Was only going to say, just add to what said there, that the overwhelming, when we look at domestic abuse, the overwhelming risk is not against men or boys. The overwhelming risk is against women and girls, predominantly from men. Every week in this country, 2 women are murdered by a current or former partner. And as has been said, it's the responsibility of men and boys to treat women with respect, rather than for society to change its expectations. So I understand that, yes, domestic abuse does happen against men and boys, but actually the overwhelming, the statistics, I hate that word, would suggest that the actual risk is against women and girls.
No, that needs to reply for this. Please.
No.
Absolutely. Thank you, Councillor Nunley. Thank you. Interesting.
Yeah, Linda Russell. Me personally, I'd like some time to think. I don't think that this topic personally for warden is around 15-minute feedback from the group, that where there are other areas within the group. I really don't feel capable of giving a view from the community other than mine. Yeah, which I don't think is fair on our community. So quite happy to go in the room, but I wouldn't like this feedback to just be the feedback that you take forward. I'd like some time to.
Well, I'm sure. Yeah, I'm sure Janet will put in the minutes the email address that if anybody wants to put forward anything after tonight, then feel free to send it through to that email address. That's fine.
Absolutely. Councillor, so just put on and get these groups. Go for it.
That would be hand out also for the way we can forward an address to all towns and parishes and input in this as well.
Yeah.
It is quite rightly, I think there's a decent viewpoint there, different viewpoints as well that will come forward, which is what we're interested in, isn't it?
Yeah, no, that's fine. I can organise that.
Councillor Model, is there any quicker one?
Totally agree with dealing with these very serious cases of abuse and assaults and the rest of it. But as a taxpayer, not very happy that the authorities downgrade things like shoplifting and all the rest of it. That's still a crime and it should be dealt with. It needs to be dealt with quickly, like it used to be in the old days. You know, somebody caught, straight into court, there and then, instead of 18 months.
So that's going to be the top one of your things then in your group, councillor. Should we say from councillor Brinklow, councillor Shield that way? Group, that sort of stick there, at the back there. You guys. It's okay, thank you. So we done this tonight. Wednesday's the next
Next week, it's in the box.
interesting seeing it before then.
Yeah, I think it needs to be.
Everyone's scratching their face. Everybody. Okay, everyone's ready? Please. Thanks very much.
Yeah, at the microphone, that one. Okay, is there a willing volunteer first?
Thank you, councillor Wilson.
So answering the first question, was really, useful, just useful input. So, highlighting the first question's, issue, we feel that, care to be involved, is a big issue, that will affect our community safety, section, quite a lot. Obviously, we've got a number of consultations coming through at the moment, and they're having massively detrimental effects, with the obvious one being the £900,000 removal of youth provision in Kent. Doesn't all affect us, obviously, because Kent removed now one youth club quite a while ago. And we'd like to agree that antisocial behaviour is a massive problem, and that isn't helped in a way that, for instance, when we approached Swale to look at a partnership meeting like was very successful at Thistle Hill, those partnership meetings have been knocked back because of funding, and we can see very obviously that Sheerness Beachfield area would have benefited from partnership meeting, and so could Queenborough. And that partnership meeting included Children Partnership, KCC, relevant parish council, relevant ward councillors, anybody that really had an input. That was removed from the wards, and I think that is a massive issue. We talked about reporting. 101 is just useless, and that led on to a bigger issue, which is Swale doesn't often report, or doesn't report as often as it needs to, one that happen to assets and elements that Swale should be reporting. Know that whether it goes to the community partnership and it stops, that shouldn't be the case. It should be available, reported back by my community voice. And our Your PC neighbourhood team should know everything that is coming through the community partnership in relation to the wards that it affects, if that makes sense, and that isn't happening. We'd really like to see more communication regarding the partnership that the unit should be producing. So we're not expecting the officers of Swale to come up with all the expertise needed. But there are a number of charities and a number of organisations that can feed into the work here. And so I really should be the facilitator there in terms of looking at better education in schools around domestic violence and around crimes. Kent Police, yes, they do go in. We know they've been at Oasis recently. But we know that with specific professional help like the domestic abuse area, they already have invested in work that could be transplanted into our schools in Swale and make impact on those various areas if we help them, if we facilitate that relationship. We also focus on Kent Police, and obviously we have another police force that operates in our area, which is British Transport Police. Now, they may be less in number, Ken, but we do have obviously working train stations. Now the remit of that force, we hear nothing back from them, and they're not included in Swale's community partnership for no reason. We know that train stations are the focus for county lines, knife crime, antisocial behaviour and welfare checks. Now, that may not be the business anymore, but BTP still offer the option for police officers to conduct welfare checks based on train stations. Sorry, I'm not.
Sorry. What's the two? Is it top three?
Ah, yes.
No worries.
And scooters
Okay.
are massive resident concern as well. That hasn't been accompanied by the Crime Commission, even though that was one of his priorities. So three things that we come back with. We've looked at background care, we've looked at reporting and contact between communication between the various inputs that should be there, and partnership was our main thing that we'd like to carry forward, because obviously partnership doesn't include any budget work, which is something that can be achieved whether or not we've got funding or not.
So top priority is just confirm.
Communication
Okay.
regards to partners and communication out to residents about what's going on.
Perfect. Second was
Oh, sorry, that would be background care.
perfect.
So that's obviously, we always only at KCC, but that's not the only place that we can go for it.
Right. And then the third one was
That was partnership communication. Well, and social pages all out there, but reporting. So making sure that, for instance, we're being accurate with our data going to police forces, and they're being accurate with their conversation coming back to SWAT. So
Perfect.
accountability work both ways.
Thank you very much. Middle group, who's your spokesman? Pete?
You've got the name there.
There's 4 words now.
Stand up, mate.
Okay, I will do. Thank you. We were just running through a few things here. One of the things that we put as one item that we don't look at the root causes of all this. You know, what way everyone is behaving, we should be looking more at what causes it from the early ages onwards, schooling, and how you generally, what the sort of the situation of all the system they're actually joined and what we control it. So it tends to be a bit laxy-daisy, and therefore there's no real control in their younger, and it just leads on. You know? So that's what we think when our young children, where we think they should be looked at more. Following on from that, we think that we should do more in like a low-level advice to offenders with behaviour issues. You know, rather than sort of straight punishments, we should be doing more in advisories to try and talk to them, to try and after the event to try and bring them, steer them back on. You know, and that's a good thing. We also mentioned about the general condition of the towns, you know, in relation to debris, and we think the town council should be doing more to control fly tipping by moving themselves over, bring contractors in, and this would bring you more into the volunteer sort of groups to try and help out, like, you know. And the last item, the camping down, we were putting down.
Well, I just happened to mention that I've got a room coffee shop, and it's right opposite the alley between the co-op there that goes through the car park. And we see on a regular basis people doing the drug dealing in the alley. And it's, you kind of look at it and think, if I can see that, why are they getting away with that? If I park my car and I'm late paying the fine, it makes it sound like I'm the cops, but if I don't pay the parking ticket, I'll get threatened to be taken to prison. But they're doing this right under our nose. And I just think if we can start clamping down on things like that, that can't be that difficult. Sorry, I did exaggerate.
I know at the last meeting it was raised certainly about Beachfield in this general area. So the police, I think, are fully aware of that.
Yeah.
I guess just keep reporting it is all you can do, really.
Yeah.
Okay.
I guess the reason I raised that, because for me, I'm no expert in any of this, but it's so obvious. It's happening right in front of our noses, and yet they're there time and time again. And you know, if we can clamp down on that, because that is a root cause to further crime.
Yeah. So just touching on social behaviour.
Yeah, sorry.
Thank you. Is there anything else?
I need to add that the CTC should be extending much further, especially with mobile units,
Okay.
so that you don't actually know whether you're being watched or not sometimes. That would help.
There's 3.5 there, but that has to be that. And the final group, I think, sort of was round back, wasn't it? Sort of like an L shape. Who's the spokesman for that group? Councillor.
So in terms of community safety issues, we've got going on at the moment, there's definitely an issue on the island of antisocial behaviour. This week, last week, and I believe the week before, teachers at the Oasis Academy refused to attend work because of how under threat they felt from the students, and they actually took strike action. That's clearly a reflection, and that will be reflected within the community, and I'm sure it will be reflected in some of the antisocial behaviour that has been going on. As much as the police can clamp down on this, it's certainly about giving support to the parents of the children to make sure that they actually feel comfortable disciplining their children. For all we know, they're getting home from school and telling their parents they've been suspended or whatever. The parents try to challenge it, and the children then turn violent. So, echoing really what Councillor was said earlier about wraparound care, that's really important.
And I get, sorry, just to take that, I take it that's probably why the Oasis are not going to be doing it from September onwards, and there's going to be 2 separate schools. And hopefully that should alleviate those issues you've just raised.
Well,
Fingers crossed.
But
yeah,
I think there's still certainly issues of drug dealing and as in central streets. That doesn't just happen in Sheerness. We've got someone in our group from Warden, and there's certainly issues on the east end of the island with drug dealing as well, particularly around campsites, not campsite, the caravan sites, and the shops as well on the Warden Road.
okay.
We also spoke about the serious violence in terms of knife crime and reports of young people carrying knives in Sheerness and around the area. Also, with my parish councillor hats on, half of the crime reported in Minster was, over like a 6-month period, has been used. And it's really good. The past week, Satinda, who also sit on the Community Safety Partnership, have been out to all the schools, handing out like cards, teaching children about healthy relationships. That's quite positive to see that. But there still obviously needs to be some work done around that to support victims and secondary and tertiary victims of people that are witnessing the abuse. But there are sort of top 3: drugs, antisocial behaviour, and domestic abuse.
Thank you. Councillor Auster, was there a quick one back on? Okay.
Line in terms of, because it's a racing training act. If we cannot offer to new academies coming in any more effort that you put from a local authority point of view, we'll be back here in 10 years' time. All we're doing is changing the badge on that school, unless we really take all by the boards and make sure that, for instance, every member of the community takes input and interest in the lives of those children and the future of those schools. It cannot just be you change the academy owner or responsible for the school and expect change to happen. That is not fair when new academies coming in, and it doesn't tell the whole story. Sorry, Chair.
No, that's a valid point. Julie noted, Councillor Shew.
None of us here tonight have actually we've mentioned all of the issues, but our first priority should be that we care. These children are going to school causing this havoc because actually they're coming from homes that have the domestic violence, who don't have money to feed their children, who don't have the correct school uniform, because actually you can sit there and say, no, it's the fact. I work. These children are going to school hungry. They're who is actually caring for the most vulnerable people in our community? At the moment, nobody. We're closing youth centres, we're closing children's centres. Nobody is caring for our most vulnerable people. And that's our job as a society. It's our job as elected members to make sure that those most vulnerable people are looked after, and actually they're not able to access front door services. What we need to do, not just as an area committee, but as a world, is actually care. Care for one another,
Well, that was,
and care for our children.
that was noted as your number 1 thing, wasn't it?
Yes.
Absolutely. Thank you very much for that. Councillor Reid.
I was just going to say, if the Oasis Academy is taken over by new people, probably the first thing they're going to do, zero tolerance, is chuck them out. They will be back on the streets of Sheerness, all those young people that need caring for, roaming around, causing even more antisocial behaviour. Sorry.
No, thank you.
Negative.
Thank you for that. Got you, thank you. Councillor Whiting.
Yeah, thanks, Chairman. I just wanted to, if I could just, we're asking about what the priorities for the Community Safety Partnership as such should be. And I do think, going on with something that's been said earlier about, it's that low level stuff. It is the fly tipping. It is the rubbish that's dumped everywhere. It's littering, it's dog fouling, it's all those little things that really upset people. It's going to use a bad word, but it really upsets people. And what upsets them more is that no matter how many times they say, this owner comes along with this dog at 8 o'clock every morning and does that outside my house, no one actually goes and does anything about it. It's like the guy who sees the drug dealing every day going on in anyway in Sheerness, but nothing's done about it, and they're still there in the following week, even though you report it. So I think as a priority, it would be putting the big things are great, and they need to be there, but somewhere in there, I didn't see those low-level crimes that have the massive and the biggest impact on the majority. They're the people who write to me more often than in some of those bigger areas. And so I do think that we need to ensure that low-level crime is somewhere near the top of the list. And low-level and antisocial you mentioned, I just wanted to elaborate on that.
I mean, that list is by no means everything that everybody does. Mate, I think one of the things I think I'm really getting actually is maybe feedback on a lot of what is already being done. And again, we haven't got time tonight for me to come back on each of these things, but there is a lot that I could comment on a lot of these things. So I think maybe that feedback of actually what collectively is going on would be useful as well. Yeah.
Thank you, sir. I've got two more questions, if that's okay. Sprinkler, then Councillor Harrison. And then I need to finish. Sorry, Councillor, I spoke over you. Can you start again, please? Thank you.
Okay.
Yeah, absolutely.
One thing that we haven't sort of mentioned is education. We sent our brightest so-called children of the island in large amounts, and we leave the rest of them to feel that they're not valued. We have too many children in one school, and until recently, there has been no provision on the island for children with special education needs. Now, my stepson had needed special education needs 20 years ago, something like that. Never got it. He's not doing very well for himself. I'd say doing a terrible job applying at the moment. But if he'd had that help all that time ago on the island, instead of which, there was nothing. So now they're building a special needs school. How well, the number of children on the island that need it.
As do I, Councillor Winkler. Thank you for that. Councillor Harrison. Can I just say, whoever kills that fly, get a mince pie. Let's drop the Councillor Harrison. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm going to say two words: boundaries and zero tolerance. Oh, we ain't got started with it, we ain't got started with it. If you took a zero tolerance approach, people would learn that there are boundaries. Children need boundaries, young people need boundaries, and adults need boundaries. It is human nature to push the boundaries. If you don't hold the line, which is what we have had in, to be fair, in these schools, after telling you 3 times to take your coat on, oh, we'll keep your coat on there. Well, I'd hold them to your damn coat on. Because that's how you learn. That's how we learn. On basically, you can't whack them around the head these days with a book or whatever we used to get. So if you take a zero tolerance approach to the little things, then you won't have so many of the big things. When people keep pushing about, well, you know this, and things that you do. You push down and go, oh, I'll go over that, I'll go on further, I'll go on further. The next thing you've got asked and you've got no what you haven't got. Smashing up the new your parents. So your council bill was going to be £200 a month, but we've got a special dispensation, it's £2 grand this month. Because your little Johnny wrote the windows of that family as well. Consequences. But because we let the little things go and the little things go, and people get to the stage, and a lot of people get to the stage. Because when I was going to like me, so what's the point? So I think if you took a zero tolerance approach, and it has happened in other areas, where there's a will, there's a way. All this they'll get nowhere. My priority is the e-scooters. I'm going to take them off the street as soon as they're seen. I don't know how many they're taken off the streets in Sheerness, that is the easy stick. So, you know, zero tolerance of problem. Let's set some boundaries, let's get some values in place, and the rest will follow.
Thank you, Councillor. Finally, Councillor Nundy, and then Steph come back, we're going to close this item off.
I think
Thank you.
in the interest of time, Chair, I was only going to say what Councillor Harrison said, and I don't think I could have said it twice now, so I'll leave it.
I concur. Thank you very much. Steph,
So thank you very much, everybody. That's really, really useful. There's clearly some quite common themes across all the groups, and I think, as I said, there's quite a lot I could already come back on, which for me means that we obviously do need to do more feedback on what we're doing. As I said at the beginning, I'm visiting all the area committees and I'll get something out to all the parishes to be able to feedback in. The next partnership meeting is in January, where we'll be agreeing what the priorities are. And then we'll be spending sort of till the end of March actually coming up with the action plan and the partnership plan that underpins that. So we can get kind of copies of that round to everybody once that's finalised. Yeah, I just wanted to, thank you very much for your time.
just before you go, Steph, just check, anyone online want to make any comments before Steph leaves? See that as a no. Thank you. Thank you very much indeed.
Should start in time.
Well, I think Emma's just asked me to stay on for one other update.
Okay. Item 6, Sheerness Revival Project updates. Emma,
Thank
please.
you, Chair. And good evening, everyone. I think it's interesting, isn't it, in terms of this update, when we've just been speaking about the sort of feedback you've just given us. And it makes me reflect on this project because I've always been really positive about this project, I still am. But when you talk about that low level crime elements that we've talked about today, and particularly the news last night that I received around Beachfields and the toilets, it's just such a disappointment to hear when we are doing such good work, or we're in the process of doing such good work when it comes to things like the Levelling Up project, because it's those little things that litter, those drugs around the Beachfield area that is a risk. I'll be honest, it's a risk. And when you hear of the investment that's already taken place in Beachfields, I'm going to use that as an example now with this project, and what's already happened, we've got to bear that in mind when it comes to this project, which we mentioned at the last meeting, but it's even more, listening to you, even more important that we build in that designing out of crime where we can, engaging with the young people in this project as it moves forward, because without that, the investment is at risk, isn't it, of just being put in and then being destroyed, let's be honest with you. And the reason I asked Steph to stay, because I reported last time that we were in the throes of being told about the Safer Streets project, which smaller amounts of money, but the fact that we've been awarded it and Beachfields and Sheerness will benefit is a positive. And I don't know whether, before you go, is there any update you can give?
That's fine. And again, maybe next time it might be worth me doing a bit more of a thorough update. So Safer Streets funding is government funding that's been around for about the last 2.5, 3 years. The Police and Crime Commissioners are invited to bid for it for specific areas. So we were really lucky for Slough this time that Sittingbourne Town Centre and Sheerness Town Centre were areas that were agreed to put forward based around the levels of ASC and crime. And we found out at the end of October that we were successful in the bid that we put forward for both areas. The funding is for an 18-month period, and there's a whole host of activities within it that are for both Sheerness Town Centre and for Sittingbourne Town Centre. We are just finalising some of the proposals, but it centres around 4 themes. So one is around target hardening, so it is about making sure sort of insecure buildings where young people can get in and cause damage, such as Sheerness Libraries, was sort of funding to secure buildings properly. And around additional CCTV. So there will be some additional fixed site cameras in Sheerness Town Centre, and we are buying some additional mobile cameras for both towns. Another element of it is actually, we know that the police alone can't be everywhere that we want them to be. So it is about trying to make sure that there is a visual presence a bit more in addition to cameras. So part of that is around trying to get some more uniformed presence out. We're also working with Sheppey Matters to actually do some sort of volunteer-based work in Beachfields itself. So actually, maybe there is a little bit more ownership of the community, and there are people present more. what else are we doing? On the youth work side, actually, a lot of the funding that we've got for both areas is going to Brogdale CIC for additional youth work. So for Sheppey, some of it will be additional sessions at Sheerness Youth Club, and some of it will be work sort of out in the community again. And it needs to be focusing on behavioural change. So I think as that programme develops over the next 18 months, hopefully some of that will pick up on it. We said tonight. There probably is more that I now can't remember off the top of my head, but it's just a little bit of a flavour. And as I say, we're finalising the plans, but hopefully a lot of that for Sheerness Town Centre in particular will help with some of that low level stuff. And again, some of the other funding that we get as a community safety partnership next year will hopefully build on some of that as well.
Excellent. Councillor Watson, is it for Steph or for Emma? Because I'm conscious Steph needs to get away. That's perfect.
It's crime prevention, not coming up with funding, bad funding for that, not even work on police funding formula, hasn't happened for 13 years. This bad funding comes inevitably too late for the paddling before, that was vandalised 3 times in the summer, too late for children that have been actually physically hurt on play equipment. It's Slough responsibility. You can say it's their fault or not, doesn't matter, people have been hurt. Now, I'm totally accepting that that is great that we've got funding, but it should not let us holding the crime commissioner accountable for no prevention of crime in this area happening when we are scouting for 12 police officers to be removed our PCSOs, which directly has effort and involvement with our youth, because nobody under 16 is held in police custody as a rule. Never, unless they've done something particularly horrible. And actually, that's not Sloug's problem. But holding these people to account, elected people to account, that is Sloug's problem. And that is something that I don't think we're achieving at the moment where we should be. Sorry.
Thank you. Anything back on that, Steph? You have nothing to come back on that, really?
Yeah, I mean, the neighbourhood policing model, certainly I've got concerns about the amount of officers that we have got, and I have been invited to a meeting with somebody from police headquarters next week around some feedback about that. So we can at least contribute that way, and certainly from the police and crime commissioner front, if we feel that we should be championing more sort of that side, then again, any feedback that I get from sort of from councillors or parishes or anything like that, and we can certainly start pushing more of that through.
And certainly that your suggestion of a more thorough one next time, I think is a very important to everyone in this room. I think everyone's nodding at me. For next time, we're going to make that agenda item, and Janet's nodding as well. Do you want to come back as well?
Yeah, no, thank you, Chair. And yeah, so apologies for the slight swerve, but I thought it was important that we just pick that up whilst we had Steph in the room. And thank you for everyone that's inputted into that bit. And how it then links to the Levelling Up project, because as I say, it's very much about trying to focus, whilst we have our certain, as I've said before, outcomes that we have to achieve for government funding, where we can lever in other funding or opportunities for that lower level, that designing, the landscape and all of that public realm in the it's very important, because otherwise, as I say, we just want to be able to maximise all the opportunities. So thank you, Stephen. Please go. In terms of the project update, you've got a couple of pages in front of you. I hope you've had a chance to have a little read. The project continues to develop and evolve as since the 2 months since Dean and Zoe came to talk to you. There's been some focus on the comms element within the comms plan that the member working group has signed off now. In the paper, it mentions the logo. I'm not going to dwell on that because we'd be here all night discussing whether you like the arrow up or down, the bold or the not. So I'm going to leave that just so you can have a look. But the good news is that the comms in terms of the website, the briefings, the information is being developed so that when we have got really tangible things to update the community on, we can do that. The governance and teams continue to hold meetings regularly with the stakeholders involved with the project. So that's the EKC group, Sheppey Matters, the Leisure Centre and the health GP surgery representatives continues as per the governance model, and that's progressing well. In terms of the 3 areas within the actual whole Levelling Up project, we've obviously got beach fields. the latest on that since we were last here talking about it is that the design, the architects, the contractors have now been appointed. So we have Wilmot Dixon working with GT3 as the designers on board now. And I'm not going to go into the details of early contractor involvement, but what that means is that we've got the contractor looking up front in the original designs and the original submissions to be able to hone in and design through the REAP stages so that we absolutely know what we're talking about, both in terms of what's going to be in, how we fit it in and what it's going to cost. So that is that's really good news. And Wilmot Dixon have been involved with various projects across the country. And so I'm really pleased that they are on board and they have developed and contracted with similar projects, as I say, across the country in terms of leisure, which is great. So they continue to work. They've been on site. They're constantly on site. And what that means is that they have also re-looked at the work programme. And I think when we were here last, the work programme had been obviously put back because of delays with funding and the fact that government hadn't actually released our money for at least 6 months prior to what they said they would. At the moment, the plan and the timescale, which is subject to change, will be that the pre-application will be submitted by January 24. So that's in a year's time. So we're probably working to about 6 months over. Obviously, that needs to be agreed with government, and the paper says that that is something we're constantly lobbying on and constantly explaining to DLUC about how this works. We are not the only project. In fact, most projects are delayed because of that funding issue, but we are continually having that conversation with government to explain the risks to the council, which members will need to agree as to whether or not at certain stages through this project, which is why the member working group is set up, as to what whether or not we could progress in certain stages, because we're not as a council going to be taking on the risk necessarily of money that we have not been paid. But that I am confident will be sorted out. So I have no issues at all with the fact that this project will be delivered. I'm just obviously highlighting the delay there. Sheppey College element of the project.
Can I just stop you there?
Yeah,
Sorry,
sure.
Councillor, so you've got a question about Beachfield, or is it a general question before we move on to Sheppey College?
General, so.
At the end. Perfect, thank you. Caroline, thank you.
Sheppey College continues to progress at good pace, which is encouraging, and they are still on track. They claim to be finished by March 25. They're already in conversation with the planning department around pre-app stages, which is good progress, and they obviously are planning and keen to be putting their planning application in early 24. They are developing their curriculum. They are working in partnership and have been liaising with various organisations across the island, so Hillports and various other providers, so that they can offer a more meaningful curriculum. So whether that's within engineering, logistics, and sort of the creative digital sectors, which I think would be a real plus to people and the young people on the island, which is what I believe we've discussed previously in terms of the feedback that we got from you guys, and that is really encouraging that the college is listening. Master's House, we sit in it as we speak. Again, a smaller project. Consultants IG9, who were the people that actually developed the first stages here, have been appointed. They've got a lot of experience, obviously, with what they've done in phase 1. And so phase 2 works are in progress as well. So the idea is that they go through the processes as we need them to do, a little bit of design elements as well. Yeah, so that is around the workshops. Once the contractor is on, actually keen in terms of being on site and looking and working with Lordship, we know that this project will progress at pace as well. So that I think is really encouraging, and definitely working with Lordship here to make sure that the workshops are delivered and work to the best of their ability. So I'll stop there, and I'll take questions if that's okay.
Absolutely. Councillor Harrison.
Thank you, Emma, for the update. Two things, Chair. Number one, I think these updates are very useful for members with the wider community. Number two, I was surprised at how long, I'm pretty sure it wasn't Michael Gove, because he just heads it up, it's the civil servants. I was not expecting a check the week after we won bid. Why did they drag these things out? I just think, if local government shouldn't be you just shut us down. So Emma and others giving these updates reports, explaining in words of my civil, which I like, the process and what's happened so far and this and this and this and this, I think is really, really useful. Because as well as, you check here, 20 million, it's only 2 weeks, or 2 years. There's also started digging, no one ever started, until you get money. So, having it explained, I think is really, really useful for us.
Thank you, Councillor Brinklow.
I declare an interest. I looked at all the plans when they were doing these, the building here, and there seem to be plans going forever and ever, and that could various things, but you've done a good job. So well done.
Thank you.
Might have cost a lot of money.
These things do, I'm afraid, in this current climate.
Councillor Worcester.
Notice board, if you'd like to forward any updates in clerk sheets, we'll make sure that that goes into notice board. Then if people go into intimidated or don't have internet access and provide an update, and they can see it in their town notice board if you'd like to have that.
I think echo that, just send it to. You're probably right anyway. Councillor Reid.
I just wondered what proportion of the funding is going to be going towards the Sheppey College part of just approximately.
I'm going to be quoted on that. I'll have to get back to you. The beach build is the main element, but it's significant new build on the council's car park.
And we're paying. I mean, it's Sheppey College. I've never been able to understand why the level of money for CNS is going to college. Its own entity.
I think it's, if I may, through you, Chair, it goes back to this conversation we had earlier, and Ashley, Councillor Shield touched on. We as a community on the island have to work together to deliver. And without that, we're not going to achieve. And whilst I take your point that it's a college, it doesn't have significant funding. And actually, when you look at the levelling up outcomes that government require, it's all about better educational attainment. It's about job creation. It's about giving our young people a future. So without, and the college clearly has limitations on the current footprint that it's got. And so when we were looking at what bid to put for the island, clearly we have to obviously tick the boxes for government in terms of the outcomes that they're looking for. But for us, as a collective, it was very clear through the work and the partnership work that we already do with the college, that without creating additional space, there was limitations and no throughput. So as a whole, as a public sector whole, for me, it was absolutely what needed to be done. So it's not without partnership funding and contribution, further educational offer, which actually, for me, is absolutely what's important with regard to Sheerness Revival. Because as much as I might say, personally, I would love a little bit more public realm or a little bit more this and that, actually, when it comes to those tangible outcomes that are expected for this funding, which is going in public, public funding from the government, they will expect us to be able to achieve on those outcomes. And ultimately, that is about the economic and the social benefit for our young people.
Just seems to lots of the other ideas which people sent in, I certainly sent quite a few, which obviously didn't get taken up. I mean, part of it, I was just reading an email earlier tonight. Part of it was to do with linking the beach to, and I don't get the feeling that the work that's happening in the HLC is actually going to really do that. Linking the beach. The thing we've got on the island is the sea. We're an island. And I think this whole project should be much more about that special thing that we have got.
Totally agree. And that's why now that we've got Wilmot Dixon on board and GT3 as the architects who had the initial design submission thoughts, which we know change as part of the project development. They're already on site looking at that legible link and already having ideas saying, okay, well, if we think about it in this way, it might work better. So we already have given them the brief around that legible link between the beach through to the town centre, through to the station. Now, of course, we're not going to do everything, but like I've always said, this is the first phase, hopefully, in a revival that it then kickstart other opportunities, other funding, other partners, other businesses to then see what can be done and then contribute. That's always been the idea. So whilst I take your point that more could be done and more can be done in the public realm, like I've just said, we also have to be mindful of the priorities and outcomes that government expects for this particular fund. And as we've always said, 20 million sounds like a massive amount of money, but it isn't. It isn't. So we have to then pick what can be done in this phase. And of course, as they start to do the designs, as they start to cost that up, I'm sure I will be back here saying to you, well, actually, we thought it was going to cost this, but it's costing this. Because I'm not stupid. We know from other projects that that's what's happening. We've gone out to, in various other guises and projects, knowing we thought it was this budget, but my gosh, it's this. And then difficult decisions need to be made. But I still stand by the fact that the college element and the partnership that's brought forward, and then actually even the opportunities of EKC and the current issue with Oasis, all of that is probably as a result of that dialogue and that aspiration the college has to provide alternative provision on the island, which probably wasn't there 10 years ago. So
I just hope a bit more can be done for the promenade and the Neptune steps.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Whiting.
Yeah, I find myself in agreement with Chris Green in many ways, because I think there's lots of ways this money can be spent. That it won't be spent in that way, but I understand why it won't be. And it won't be because the bid had to be constructed around the things the government wanted to see delivered. And to be fair, it was a joint bid between the council and the college, as I understand it. But because the bid has to come from the council, it became the council's bid. But it was always a joint bid because the college could offer those things, tick those boxes around the education, employability and a whole range of other things. So I welcome the bid. Yes, of course we could have more, but there are other pots about. We've heard about the St. Streets money. There's other pots of money that the government is very good at chucking at us every now and again. He says, "Oh, here's £200,000. If you can spend it in the next 6 months." Well, you'd think that was easy, but it's never easy to do it in 6 months. So actually, what you want is a whole load of oven-ready projects on the shelf, so that when the government throw money at you, you can pick one off and say that will do.
Neptune steps.
Neptune steps is a great one, but I understand that the town council's got is looking at those.
Peter's got the plans.
But I think Neptune steps would be a great example of a bit of joint that work with the whole Greenway project also.
Absolutely.
And there's money in the kitty for the active travel element, which the Neptune steps would tie into perfect. So I think it is a case of all talking and making sure that we're not dropping the ball somewhere, so that when money does become available, we've got something to spend it on. We can tell the government we've got something to spend it on, they can trust us to do it.
Thank you, Councillor McDonald.
Yes, I'll just take the issue on the beach actually, because the beach is very important. And I actually completely blame, we've lost a lot of the Sheppey beach because of the neglect by the Environment Agency. And I don't say that lightly. Poor Environment Agency have to exist on £1 billion, which is £1,500 million a year in their budget. And they don't want to repair the groins, which will stop the longshore drift. So I think we need to put a lot of pressure on them to actually invest in it. If they can't do it, then get a local firm to do it. There are local firms up the Medway that do marine work, and will do it at a much better price. The proper legitimate firm, proper price than when these quangos, because the Environment Agency is actually a quango of DEFRA, that they and they're really neglected. Okay, it's not appropriate here, but lays down, a lot of the lays down beaches disappeared again because they completely neglected to do what they're actually supposed to do, which is the land below sea level or up to sea level. The rest of it's Wales' responsibility. That's the truth. So I think we should have a real go at the Environment Agency. They know I've been elected already, and they did a fantastic job at just by the yacht club, Rock House, because they knew I'd be looking, and they replaced all the facings which had been washed away with the tide. So it's only if we really put them in an embarrassing situation. Sorry, I read it on.
No, thank you. Councillor Winston.
Councillor Whiting mentioned up in Reading. Well, we are doing some serious work with Scarborough Council and KCC on looking at providing up in Reading solutions to walking and cycling on the area on the island, and Scarborough Council held a very good meeting at Sheppey Matters, which quite a lot of councillors came to. It was to do with looking at joining Shinnes with Queenborough with Minster, and there was an online consultation, and that's now being they've looked at it, and they've sent people out from the team that they're working with to actually cycle it. I don't know how they've got on with it, but we should be hearing back from there. We're also working with KCC, who've got a consultation out at the moment. You can go online, and I think it's by January you've got to reply back. But anyone who wants to have a look at the KCC consultation, there's 15 areas for cycling and 15 areas for walking. And at the moment, Sheppey's come top of the cycling one.
Thank you, Councillor Winston. I was at that meeting, and I'm fully aware. I think there's most of those. Thank you very much. Perfect. Any more on this matter? Perfect. Anything to come back on? Perfect. Okay, item 7, long awaited. The Pyramid Project. Liam Paul, if you'll give your presentation, touches on nicely about the college. Where are you going?
My name's Lee.
Did you want
to? I can.
You sing?
Or would you like to sit here and you're close, if you sit over this side, you're close to the owl.
Oh, it's wonderful.
Yeah. Yes.
Yes, so thank you for allowing us to come along tonight and just give you a very brief outline of what we do at the Pyramid Project. As you can see, it was established in 2017. Next slide, please. And Paul, Charles and myself, we basically deliver the programme along with a couple of other volunteers and teachers. Next slide, please. What we're about, well, basically, we've discussed some of this already, but we work with young people, 16 to 24. But probably the most vulnerable, isolated, quite often most needy on the island. They've not engaged with school or college quite often. They've dropped out for various reasons, some of which we've discussed this evening. And our aim is to, first and foremost, is to engage with them and help them understand that there's a purpose. They have a purpose and they can achieve in life. Very difficult. Quite often these young people have become very isolated. They've got very low self-esteem, and we have to work with them often one-to-one until such times as they're ready to start looking at a program or courses which we put them on. If you go to the next slide, please. Just briefly, I'm going to hand over to Paul for the history bit in a minute, but we deliver functional skills. But again, first and foremost, we sit with them on a one-to-one basis, and we engage. We find out what's held them back, because quite often they've been in a situation, particularly in schools or family life, where it's not good. And allowing them to talk, allowing them to develop, is first and foremost what we try to do. And once we've done that, we can then start engaging with them. Really just to touch on, Paul, if you wouldn't mind, on the history, might give a bit more outline of what we've done up until this point.
Yeah, sure. So, well, for those of you that don't know me, I am Paul West. I set the project up back in 2017. Lee's described that quite well, to be honest with you, because a big chunk of the work that we do and have been doing is on that 16 to 24-year-old group there. They're labelled as NEETs. They're not working, they're not in education, and they're not in training for some of the reasons that Lee alluded to. It might be they've been bullied at school, it might be they didn't go to school, it could be a whole array of reasons, but they find themselves at a point where they're just in limbo. And we feel that we owe them a second chance to do something. We work one-to-one, and by working on a one-to-one in a safe environment, they start to find a little bit of momentum. They get out of the bedroom. That's a big step. It's a big step coming to us. And before we know it, and Lee, we've got some stats up there, and they really please me. The last contract that we delivered under the ESF programme that ended in March, we supported 70 young people from this island between those age groups. And as you can see there, 47 of those people passed their first qualification. It's huge. If you saw the people before they came on programme, about people that were so far away from not just the labour market, but from the education system as well. It's fantastic for them. And 24 of those that we know of progressed on to either further education or into employment. And they get a lot of one-to-one support from people like Lee that will sit with them and almost handhold them to where they want to go. That programme that I've just spoke about there ended at the end of March. That's the end of the ESF money. So we found ourselves in a bit of a limbo period ourselves, because there was a gap between ESF and UK Prosperity Fund. So that provision wasn't there for quite a while. Now, thanks to some people in this room, Mike, Dolly, and there was others as well, they helped us to get that provision back. Thank you, because we've now got 27 active young people, and this is since October. So how quickly this happened, 27 young people actively coming in and getting their education and getting their confidence and getting their future. And for Lee and I to see this firsthand, it's absolutely brilliant. But it's also good news for the future of the Isle of Sheppey, because if we don't do that, they will undoubtedly be the next generation of the long-term unemployed. In fact, we spoke earlier about antisocial behaviour, and I've no doubt that some of them will probably end up going. So it saves a fortune in the long run. Just before I hand back to Lee, there's one thing I do want to say, and I used to get a bit confused with this. This is not your typical youth unemployment. Because these people are not ready. They're not ready to go into mainstream education. If you put them in a college, they wouldn't last a week. They'll be straight back out. Likewise, if you put them in employment, there is so much work that we have to do with them beyond supporting them from an education point of view. And we just want to make everybody aware that this group exists and we do need to help them. We left school in the 1970s. I'm not sure if it's existed then. If they did, they would have been in the minority. But for whatever reason, they do today. And it's a big, big group. If you look at the numbers we supported there, if you look at what we could have supported during the period we had no funding, see what we're supporting now, and they're coming in thick and fast every week. They exist. We see it firsthand. And we can turn that round. We can help those people. We can help this community. So we just really wanted to share some of that with you, and thanks for inviting us.
Thank you, Paul. Thanks, Paul. We've said this as well already this evening. None of this can be done in isolation. No one sector, no one business, no one part of our community will ever deal with this singularly. And part of what we do is we build partnerships because, you know, whether it be business, whether it be community projects, whether it be the education sector, and in this case, obviously councils, etc., without us all working jointly together, we're not going to make a difference, because all that will happen is we'll do our little bit and then they disappear somewhere. So we've got to work together to make it happen. We've been very fortunate with the support that we've had, particularly recently from the Island Works, the Dockyard Church. We've been given space there for free to work out of. They're very supportive, and we're building programs that include businesses, because we understand again that, you know, once we've done our bit and once we've given them some self-esteem, once they've got their confidence, we can help them open doors into business, into work, into education. And that's important, that there's a journey for these people, not just, as I say, a one-stop, cheerio, good luck. Last one. Present and challenges. Well, again, Paul's already mentioned, we've been very fortunate with the support of council and people sitting here tonight to have money to carry us on at the moment into March, and then hopefully beyond with the, is it the, I can't remember what it's called now. That's the one, UK Prosperity Fund, fingers crossed. That we'll be on that. We've had help from Minster Parish Council. We're going to be delivering a programme from Minster as well as Sheerness for those people that can't get into Sheerness. We're developing a partnership with Oasis. We have offered many times in the past, but unfortunately at the time they never took us up on our offer. They are now, and we are working very closely with them. We also have other programs. So that's just one of the programs we do. We're about to start the Multiply program, which is a government funded scheme. That's for everyone from 19
no upper age.
Yeah, no upper age for that one. Community groups, I mentioned earlier. I've got to mention the group Linda and myself are part of, which is the Sheppey Light Railway project, which is looking at the pathway. We want to get young people engaged with that. It's so important. It's not all about just us. It's about those young people. And if they can get involved in it as well, it carries on into the future. We've also got a business network group that we're setting up. Our first meeting is on the 20th of December out of the Dockyard Church. Please feel free to come along and support it. It's the first meeting we've had of local businesses to get them involved in business projects, but also to support, once again, the young people that we are working with. And as Paul funded it into till March, fingers crossed we'll receive funding to keep the project going into the future. Thank you for your time.
Yeah, I've got to ask, the Multiply programme to most teenagers, what does that mean?
It's a,
that means something.
yeah, no,
Yeah.
Paul can probably
I believe we're just about to start this.
Yeah.
I believe the thinking behind it is to remove the maths anxiety that a lot of people will have.
Right.
So perhaps people that never really been involved in any kind of numeracy, it's their opportunity to do so, but in a different setting. Some of the workshops I've gone to watch, they do things like maybe cooking, show, you know.
That's fine. You've answered. Perfect. Councillor Whiting.
Yeah, thanks, Chairman. I want to just make a couple of comments. First of all, to thank both Lee and Paul for coming in and for you for allowing it to go on the agenda. I think it was really important that everybody on Sheppey gets to hear more about what these two guys are doing with the project. We hear so many bad things about the Isle of Sheppey, mostly, but we do. These two gentlemen, I think, are living proof, as are many in this room, that Sheppey's got a massive heart and it really does care. To go back to the word care that was used earlier, and it does care. And so I'm grateful for you guys for doing what you're doing. And one of the thanks that didn't get given was to Kieran and his team, who work for Elmwood Soil Council, who are involved with that UK Prosperity Fund bid. So hopefully that will all come good for March here as well. I suppose my question is are you intending, I see the Minster thing out there, are you intending, if you can, with parishes to extend out and do more outreach into parishes, should a particular parish council like Minster
absolutely
be involved, and how could they go about doing that?
Yeah, again,
We would very much like to be doing that.
Yeah.
The Minster ones are a good option for us because we've got use of the hall there that's opposite that hall exactly.
It's Friendship Hall, Friendship House.
No, it's not Friendship House, it's
Parish Hall.
no, it's the other one opposite the little shop. So there was a shop on the corner. I never know the name of the hall.
Baptist Church.
Yeah. So it's out of the church hall. We've got free use of that whenever we want to use it. And we are looking to outreach into the ward and Laysdown area at least once, twice a week. If we can find the premises, anyone can offer that. Again, for those people that just can't get into Sheerness. So it's important that we have those satellite.
We probably should be making more of the outreach, if I'm honest.
Yeah.
I think the bulk of the delivery is done in Sheerness. We do want to be spreading that out. So the only other thing I would say is.
Sorry, that was wait. Thank you. Carry on.
Okay.
I should have hand up. I missed this. My apologies. Carry on.
At the same time, we know eventually these people will have to travel. If they're going to work, they're unlikely to put them on their doorstep. So at the same time as supporting them, we're also trying to build up their confidence in order to get on the trains and travel, etc., etc. So yes, there are sometimes companies journeys into Sheerness, but actually that's not a bad thing because if they're doing that on a regular basis, they are building up. Yeah, that's not a pop out, by the way, because we understand the importance of it.
Well, it's just,
We'd be very happy.
No, I was just interested where you get your referrals from. Where do you get the young people from?
The bulk of the referrals come from Kent County Council's education team, the education people. They hold them in register. And, you know, this is quite into what I was saying earlier. They know that they have people on that register. They cannot simply move into a classroom type provision. And when that provision was, a lot of those young people just stopped by. Hence, when we reopened it in October, the floodgates opened. So
I'm sure a lot of those could be rewarded.
yeah, absolutely. Yeah, we'll talk because we're very.
Absolutely, yeah. And a lot of self referrals as well. You know, your friends of a friend. Once they get to here, and we've had to, unfortunately, after March, we had to sort of not close the doors because he was able to support the programme for his commercial business, so that we could carry on through the bad times. But they are bad times at the moment. Our need population in Swale, as many of you may or may not know, is the highest in Kent. And unfortunately, the providers are diminishing. There's very few left. In fact, we're the only one on the island delivering the sort of programme we're delivering. There's no one else left. And when I first joined the group, there were many, but they've just all gone by the wayside. There's no one left doing it.
We've got 3 more questions so far. You're
I think
done.
that was somebody asking about.
Councillor Nunley? Thank you, Councillor
I'm
Nunley.
only going to ask about quotes, just very quickly.
Perfect.
Thank you for coming, and it's really great. It's a fantastic project. Could anybody refer anybody to? So if I come across as a council,
Absolutely, yeah.
someone, we could just refer them directly to you.
Without a doubt, yeah.
Brilliant. I'll take your email address again.
Yeah.
Thank
Yeah.
you.
Okay. Councillor Reed, have you still got a question?
Yeah, I was going to ask the same one again, but
Okay.
the other one is, where are you actually based?
We're based, our main office is in Hope Street Centre in Sheerness. But again, we're twice a week, we're also at the Dockyard Church, where we do our one-to-ones. And again, great space for young people to come into. It breaks them out, particularly those that are not engaged, as I said earlier, with colleges or schools. It's a totally different space, and it's really invigorating for them to come into that space, and it opens them up for discussion. So yeah, it's great space. But yeah, we're looking for other spaces.
Wonderful.
Thank you.
Thank you. Look, I've got one question. The 70 young people that you work with, I think you mentioned bullying and other issues. Off the top of your head, what is the main issue? Talking about it earlier on. What is the main issue off the top of your head out of those 70?
I think it's a mixed bag. It's probably the answer you was.
Okay, top 2, whatever.
Parenting,
Okay.
not role models in their upbringing, so they're allowed to sort of drift off, not attend school regularly.
And I would,
Anxiety, which probably just is a byproduct of that.
So with those 2, going back to what we talked about, we did the groups, we went and we've all fed back. What can we do, in your opinion, as councillors, to help that, so that those 70 people you're not working with and you've got no people coming through the door, in your opinion?
Oh, I see, to address that root cause, wow.
And that's when you've got a question.
You caught me off guard, because I genuinely don't know what that long-term.
Because we keep talking about it, we want to try and solve the problem that's solved. And I know it's not easy, and it's probably not us, it's probably someone else, but.
I often think that we should be intervening way before we get to them, 16 years old. I speak to some teachers that will tell me they can spot someone that's going to be neat when they're about 10 or 11 years old. And really, we wouldn't need to be here if we could find a way of resolving that point. I mentioned earlier that, that classroom environment isn't for everybody. It doesn't mean to say they're disruptive. It doesn't mean to say they're not intelligent. They just don't learn particularly well. And if we could find a way of, what we do works. That's a proven method now over years. It works. We see the results. If that could be adapted within the school environment, and this is way beyond my expertise here. This is, you asked me an opinion there. If we could be doing schools and reach a point where actually we don't produce leaks in the first place, there is no need for extra stuff.
And on that, would you say, I will come back to councillor, would you say that more vocational education, rather than learning about longshore drift, which I did, and all the rest of it, and other things, do you think vocational from a younger age would be a better to keep people at events?
I do. I think there is support for students that are academic and want to go on to university, and that's great. I think we should do that. But I think a lot of students that don't take the academic route kind of fall off the cliff a little bit. I keep going back to the 70s, and I should do this, but I know when we left school, it was just automatic. You left school and went to work. It's just what you did. And I think because they don't have that same route into work, it's just too easy for them to.
Just the 2 new presentations that I went to for the new schools it's very much more vocational rather than maths and they're still core subjects, but they do a lot of vocational. So hopefully that may help as well moving forward. Must move on. Councillor Shield, thank you.
Yeah, firstly, when these people drop off of society, nobody cares. You two care. Well done. And yeah, definitely, I work early years, so I do to 5. And I can see children already that will be coming to you in 15, 20 years' time, because I can see that from an early stage. But the problem we have is there's nowhere to look there. There's no support for these families that are struggling. We've got single parents that are struggling really bad. And the support they get is nothing. And these children are thrown into an education system they can't cope. They don't need that actually battles with their mental health, which is why we then end up with a massive mental health crisis, and we might end up picking them up further down the line than we should have.
Yeah.
Because we should be meeting their needs from the early years.
I agree.
As a society. So well done, guys.
Thank you.
Yes.
Thank you very much. And this, anything to come back on? Yeah. I know you want to get away, Paul. Absolutely. We've got some other agenda items. I'm looking around the room. You staying, please? I will, perfect. If we get from the other agenda items, if there is anything else you think of that you want to address to Lee, I'm happy to come back before we close and get enough time before 9:30. Is that okay? Perfect. Okay, agenda item 9, public forum. I know we've got 2 questions. Have I missed something? Apologies, I've missed something. Apologies. Sorry, item 8, I do apologise. Emma.
Chair, so for those of you that were here, member councils or otherwise pre-COVID, some of you will have remembered that CC used to manage and administer what was called the Quality Bus Partnership, which was a meeting, quite a formal meeting, where councillors, officers and the bus companies within Swale used to meet every so often to discuss issues that were being raised. In fact, I think Councillor Booth might well have been on it.
I was on it.
Yes, I do remember that. But through COVID and through that time, national government had a bit of an about turn around the way in which it wanted to fund KCC as the overarching body responsible for highways, buses, etc., and launched what it called its national bus strategy. I'm not going to go into the detail of that because I do not know the detail. But ultimately what happened was KCC, and it took a long time, we've talked about this with government funding, was awarded funding. It's in the report, it's the details of that. It looks like quite a lot of funding, but we have to remember that that's across the whole of the county. And it was very prescriptive with KCC about what it had to do in order to receive that funding. And I believe, and there are members in this room that will know more than me, have worked very hard to tick the boxes to get that funding. But what it meant was there was very prescriptive governance arrangements with regards to meetings and the way in which it passported that money down. And what that left was a bit of a gap at a local level. And I know in previous meetings, we've had questions about buses generally, but also about that local level involvement. So as a result, personally, I had discussions with officers at KCC because they were quite clear that they did not have the resource, and it wasn't an ask of government to have anything at a local level because all the funding is going to sit at KCC and be very prescriptive about how it's funded. And there, whilst there will be initiatives and funding that will be benefited in Swale, it's very difficult to have any impact on that national and that plan. However, having spoken with the chief execs of the now 2 bus companies within the borough, it was still felt that having some form of informal gathering, I'll call it that, it's not certainly going to be a formal meeting as it used to be, could be helpful to at least have their voice heard in Swale, and similarly feedback to KCC and the bus companies from Swale PLC, let's put it that way. So with that in mind, this report has been through numerous meetings within the council to consider, because it has a resource implication on the council as to whether or not this should be set up. Now, the decision has been to set up a local focus group, but it's going to be very high level because we do not have the resource internally to make this into an industry. But what it will allow is twice a year for me to work with members, the bus companies, KCC, and some officers within the council, just to have a get together to discuss issues, and where there can be influence or at least feedback, that we try to enable that to happen. So the proposal in front of you today is in addition to 2 members of the Planning and Transportation Working Group that have been nominated, and myself, who will coordinate this, we are asking for a member from each of the area committees to be invited to come along to that meeting, which will be during the day, with the bus companies and KCC, who are all happy to be part of that, and come to Swell or be online. We need to figure out that out. I imagine it will be probably in person, because I think actually these things work better that way, and they're only twice a year. So I will stop there, and hopefully we can go to a
Note the first one in January.
Yeah, well, the only one, I haven't set a meeting date yet, because the idea was to sort of gauge that interest from each of the area committees. So the idea would be that I'd try and set something up probably now towards the end of Jan, beginning of Feb. But obviously the next area committee cycle is March, April anyway. So it will allow any conversation that's had today to be fed into that first meeting and then feedback in that way. So it will be reciprocal to the area committees. And we will see how it goes.
Councillor, do you have a question?
Who's one president saying their representations, in cases when bus services were removed appropriately from local neighbours, so told quite frankly, bus services have nothing to do with KCC, they were to do with private companies only. Changed, and if it hasn't changed, we've got showing a particular waste of public money here in terms of paying for sport, paying for council sport, getting children's meetings or whatever, when in fact, KCC are not interested in widening residents and public transport services, because they showed no regard right up until 5 minutes ago.
Well, I'm not, if it's okay through you, Chair, I'm not going to talk or comment on the resource issue, because that has been debated at length at different council meetings, but I take your point, Councillor Worcester. My understanding is KCC have a lot of parameters with regard to the funding that they have received as part of the national bus strategy, which has very clear parameters. My understanding is that when it comes to commercial arrangements and bus routes, that is firmly with the bus companies, because they have to make a profit, obviously. However, there are certain things like, for example, a community bus scheme that obviously clearly we as a borough council cannot fund, but is constantly, particularly here in the island, mentioned around lack of transport, etc. So there may well be opportunities to lobby or to put things to them. I can't guarantee what the outcomes might be, but for twice a year, personally, I feel that it's worth a go, because it may well be this doesn't work. It may well be that actually it's a talking shop, and even twice a year is too resource intensive. However, shall we see how it plays out and see whether or not it does result in any further benefits other than the ones already that Swell benefit from, like the capping of the spares and the summer schemes in terms of what the buses put on.
Thank you. Councillor Mundy.
Thank you, Chair. I think public transport on the island, I think we can all agree that it is certainly lacking, and any opportunity to actually talk to people that run these companies and make these decisions can only be a good thing. So absolutely, this is something that we need to support. We need to send a strong representative there. It's actually to stand up to the people on the island that are in some of the more isolated communities to try and improve, but quite frankly, appalling public services, the appalling public transport that we have on the island. Absolutely, this is a fantastic idea.
Thank you. Councillor White.
Yeah, I was going to say, I just agree with that last point. It does give another point of contact. I mean, you have elected members both at county and borough level, and parishes who regularly are no doubt at the Kent County Council in respect to public transport. I'm picking up on Councillor Worcester's point. KCC probably spend about £70 million a year on transport. What they don't have responsibility for, as William said, is the commercial services, because they are commercial services. That's been the case since buses were deregulated probably 30 or 40 years ago. There are exceptions around the country. London Transport, for example, is an exception where the local authority does run public service, public buses, public transport. In Kent, along with all the other areas of the country, Kent County Council don't. What they have done in the past is spent a lot of money subsidising services that otherwise would not run if they were totally reliant on fair paying public. So they've used council taxpayers' money to subsidise bus services. They continue to do that, but the pot they've got to do that is very small. So this extra money from government is just hugely welcome, because government have seen that there's a £2 billion problem. There's thrown £2 billion and trying to solve it. And that, in a great deal, is due to councils like Kent lobbying government to say, we need some help here. You can't just leave it to the market. You need to invest the money. And so we have no money left. So you've got to do it. And government has stepped in and is doing so. So I think this is a good scheme. I think it's right that KCC should invite, they're not obliged to, but they've invited the boroughs to join in. And I think it's right. And I think the frequency that, because we all get the opportunity to talk to the bus companies, we all get the opportunity to feed in KCC through our workers' councillors. I welcome this. Council London, I welcome it, and hope it will bring better service to parts of Sheppey, which currently are terribly and woefully underserved.
Thank you. Councillor Winkler.
As a person who relies completely on public transport, on train and buses, on taxis, and on very kind people, I think I would have quite a lot to say in such an organisation and would love to take part in.
Okay. Obviously, it's the members of this committee that's going to be on this. By all means, you can feed into that nomination, that nominated person in due course once we go to the vote, if there is a nomination.
But I think that person should actually use the buses, and most of the people here come by car.
Okay. Point noted. Councillor Harrison.
Yeah, I'm quite happy to propose Councillor Worcester as our representative.
Okay.
Somebody will second it. I do think, though, that we should, whoever we choose as our representative from Sheppey area, we should also choose a sub. Because it meets twice a year, and it'd be absolutely imperative that somebody from Sheppey is at it, whether it be the nominated person or their substitute. And that's, we do that quite often. So that, did somebody say they were seconding that? Good. To carry on, whoever is our representative chair, I think does need to be, and I'm not suggesting a million. Hundreds of pages are copied as part of the agenda for the Sheppey area. But it could be emails to those people who are.
Yeah.
Well, the SID.
Let me send that out to whoever the nominated person is.
Because it's very important to know what their initiatives, what they put in. So it won't be you've got a blank canvas and 20 million. It will be email, and here's the boxes that it's got to tick.
Okay.
Which is not as good as the all this money to enhance bus service. Or whoever does go gets that and actually reads it, digests it, and knows it inside out.
Thank you. Any other nominations? No, I got Councillor Harrison, the proposer, Councillor Shields, the second. Is that correct? Has to be from the members from SBC on this committee, yes. Is that what you was going to ask? Yeah. By all means, as Ringlow said, you can obviously feed into Councillor Worcester before she attends the meetings, etc., etc. Okay. So, Councillor Worcester, the nomination for the Sheppey Area Committee. Okay. Show of hands just to confirm that. Yeah. Carried. Thank you. Anything else on that?
Might there be somebody who could be available during the day?
I think speaking to, if there is someone and Councillor Worcester can't make one of the two meetings, I think just a feedback from they raise it myself, we can just put a global email out to say who's available. I would have thought so.
So it's not a formal, so to be clear, it's a focus group. It's not a formal meeting. It won't have any minutes. It won't be any of that because we can't resource that type of industry. So happy if there is someone that would like to come in, that can during the day come if you can't. But as I say, it's twice a year, so hopefully it won't be an issue. That attendance.
I think Councillor McDonald's indicated he was available during the days, so if not, happy? Happy?
What about these cars? That's my point.
I think your point's noted.
Yes, I know.
We need to move on. Okay, item 9, public forum. I know we've got a question for Ms. Russell. Thank you.
Meeting in person, but I've kept up to speed with the minutes at the website, and my question is, when faced with budget reduction decisions next year, will square, mind that area committees are a square thing, an extra layer of bureaucracy, will value for money, cost-benefit analysis as to whether these area committees are actually working, bear in mind that it's information giving and not really decision making, because the decision should be made at the lowest level of the parishes. You've got the borough council and then the.
Okay, so there's about 5 questions there. So the question is, what's the point of area committees? Right. I'll let Emma ask that.
And thank you for your question. It's a really good question and one that I'm sure we've had raised previously. So thank you for the question. I suppose my response as an officer, given that it 4+ years ago when the area committees were established by the then administration, it was a council decision to do that for the reason to actually, as we've heard tonight, pull people together. Now, originally, the area committees did have funding to distribute to, and you may not have been privy to that, but this group has seen the benefits of that funding and a report about the outcomes of where that money went. Now, because of difficult decisions that had to be made, last financial year, the decision by council was taken to cease the grant funding for the area committee, however, continue with them as a meeting. And the reason for that is my understanding is very much about bringing people together, bringing you all as local residents and parish and town and ward councillors to problem solve, to share issues. So as much as you use the word bureaucracy, and I'm not going to agree or disagree with you on that, it's very much in my mind about a way of coming together for the benefit of that area. So for here, Sheppey. And certainly, I believe that is, in many ways, we've had a good session so far tonight as a result. The resource implications at the moment, and I haven't got that in terms of pounds and pence costed, is very much just the admin resource of our time, as officer time, which we build into the work programme anyway, and if sometimes not always resource to hire a facility. And that ultimately is it. So you're not talking a lot now the funding isn't there. But it's a very good question and one that the administration, I'm sure, will continue to review as things get even more challenging. Thank you.
Thank you. Terry, is there anything on that or move on to?
It was on.
Okay, thank you.
I was only going to point out that I actually think these meetings are really worthwhile because it does give the public an opportunity to come and meet their local councillors, to actually know who they are, to get updates from the council. And to be honest, members of the public have actually turned up tonight. I've sat in several meetings at Swire House where no members of the public have turned up.
Turn up to the parish council. That's what I'm saying. For me.
But the level of input directly from the Swire about things that are going on, you know,
Yes,
so like to say
this meeting has not been of any value to me as a board of parish council. That's what fine, but it's been about Sheerness, all the questions, all the input, it's been Sheerness, the projects have all been Sheerness. bit convoluted, whether or not it's any added benefit, not benefit, added benefit,
So
what we've already got.
I think, you touched earlier on, I think you wanted some more time to talk about the other issues with STEP, which was great. I think if you've got a particular issue that you want discussed, I'll be more than willing to put it on the agenda, or certainly consider to put it on the agenda for the next meeting.
No. Yeah, but what I would say is, if I have an issue,
Yeah.
now I know steps there, I will go direct.
Perfect.
There will be no need for an intermediate
It
layer.
depends what the issue is.
Oh,
Yeah, okay. Does that answer, doesn't answer your question, mate, you might not agree with it, but it's answered.
I don't agree with
Perfect.
it, but
Okay, thank you.
yes.
Suze, I believe you've got one as well.
I was just going to bring up the fact of the lower road and the terrible mess that it is at the moment with all the lorries going backwards and forwards. It's a nightmare driving along there, clean the car, and it's just a mess. Surely the lorry should be having a before coming down, back, after being onto the sites that they go to and dropping all that mud. And it is quite bad. I don't know whether anybody else thinks the same.
That's a McDonald's, wasn't it?
Yeah, in actual fact, they've got, the, operators of the site got an obligation to see that the vehicles are clean when they leave. And if you know of any cases like that, that needs to be reported. And certainly there is a lot of mud on the lower road. You know, coming out from, well, one of the sites was the Ramsdown tip site. I just came along there today and, you know, it is a legal obligation. But the lower roads is in a pretty poor state in parts. And I managed to get it as reinstated as an A road, much against the particular officer at the time on KCC, who's now departed. He said it was never an A road, it was always a B road, which it wasn't, but you're further up the pecking order. So at the moment, the traffic between Cowstead Corner and Button Hill Drive exceeds the design capacity of one lane. Each lane has got a capacity of 13,000 vehicles unless it's dual carriageway, in which it does actually go up. So
Going back to the mud issue, Councillor,
Yeah.
they got reported to the company.
yes, so
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Does that answer your question? And I guess then if you don't get any answers, refer it to the ward council, depending where it gets along the new road it is that's the issue. Again, I'm sure the KCC gents will get involved as well if needed, if you don't get a reply from the company. Does that help? Any other questions? Yes, on.
It's a question pretty much made answer today.
We'll try.
We had a visit with photographers of the film crew to visit Swat.
Oh, sorry, so what film group?
Film crew to visit Swat.
Okay, business well, yeah, okay.
And the stuff that they were saying was that everything tourism related now, visit Swat, will be just on Swat Council website. There's going to be no brochures, no maps, no paper copies of anything. I'm not sure if that's correct, because obviously tourism is a massive part of income for everyone. And I just wondered if that was factual, or is it something under budget considerations, that sort of thing?
Emma, thank you for the question.
So
No problem.
you are correct. At last year's budget setting, as part of the medium-term financial plan, the council budget was approved. As part of that was a reduction in the economic development service that we've heard about today here with me. Some of you may have known Lynn Newton.
Yes.
And she is no longer with the council in terms of those decisions that were taken. So where we have challenging times, where there are non-statutory services, tough decisions have to be taken. And whether we agree or disagree, that's a decision that was made.
Yeah, it's just the fact that such a tourist-based industry, and the levelling up fund is about getting people to come and visit the island. And if you go to Wigan for the day, you don't council's website now to see what's going on. So it's just an observation.
It's a very good point, it's going to get worse and worse over years.
I mean, we get about hundreds of the maps and the visit swell brochures every summer, because we have 3,000 votes visiting Queen Park.
Just for your next question,
Nothing to give them out.
for your next question, Simon, I'm going to bring Councillor Whiting. Is it a quick one, Councillor Whiting?
Mine's on exactly the same point.
Oh, okay.
I totally agree with you. I think it is a shame that this is typical topic. And I fought hard to get the, and did get the Tourist Information Office at Sheerness, where SFM is based down by the seafront, down by the leisure centre. They are voluntarily acting as a tourist office, much like cafe, handing out these things about tea room apologies, tea room, coffee room, his tea rooms. But it's really important that people have a physical something to take away. Now, they give away as many leaflets as they are given by the various businesses on Sheppey. I really don't think it should be done with somebody to be able to find a way of producing them. So there's businesses like Diamonds and others, like the Tourist Information Office, and also the one in the Criterion Theatre down the road, have something to hand out. It's quite important. Thank you.
I know it's all shared, so I don't know.
Simon, what's the second question?
It's an observation this week. I've had to deal with some young ladies that are living in their car, homeless in their 20s. It's been an awful situation. But I was thinking about the Swell House, and you cleared the top 2 floors of it, and you're looking at doing short-term offices. Now there's most of that hit now. You've got Master's House, you've got Island Docks, you've got somebody who built at Leesville. So there's office space galore at the moment. But in my earlier roles as developer in my past, we converted 2 floors of an offsite into small residential pods. Now, if you did that for your temporary housing, it would save all your temporary housing costs. And you've got somewhere that people aren't going to be rough sleeping, so you haven't got a hotel cost, you control your own costs. It was just a throwaway idea.
That,
Because you've got the same
I
staircase.
think that. So first of all, it's only the first floor that's going to be rented. The other floors are in use.
Oh, well, I think, sorry, okay.
Third floor is still in use. And at the moment, there is demand for office space for that. However, the use of pods, the use of elements within TA are being looked at because it is an issue. Councillor Harrison may want to come in. But in terms of that type of committed development, it isn't, I don't believe, as straightforward as just allowing housing in pods within the first floor of Swell House. There's a whole load of other things that we would need to look at. However, that issue around our temporary accommodation provision is something that one of my team is looking at because it is a focus in terms of all of the reasons that we know and why we need to trying to help alleviate that.
So do you want to come in or not?
I would say that we are not alone in having a problem, number 1 with homelessness, and number 2 with temporary accommodation. So we could say we're lucky, but we're only spending like 4 or 5 mil on it, where some councils are spending 300. There are some councils who are 300 families a day turning up needing temporary accommodation because the private rent. You're monitoring the garden in some areas. Just I had a couple of videos and everything. So people end up out. We are looking at, we spend a lot of time in staff talking to landlords and trying to prevent people being trapped out. Is there any way we can help? Blah, 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 blah. We are purchasing our own temporary accommodation properties in order to help the situation. In the same way as the Paul spoke earlier, it's about young people needing to be back them to go into educate, further education and employment. Quite a number of the homeless people need wraparound services before they are, if that's the right word, to actually even take up a tenancy. Because we had this during COVID where it was basically get everyone in off the street, put them here, there and everywhere. And some people just being inside and closed and having rules and behaving basically. So in the same way as the young people need that wraparound care and the time and the effort put into them to help them to be in a learning frame. So the homeless people need to have that wraparound care and available to actually be in accommodation, be it temporary, which these days could be 2 years, could be 10 years, or permanent accommodation. So it's not our staff, I would say our staff are losing sleep. I'm really lucky to have such fantastic people surround us, housing options, homelessness, all this, working on behalf of our homeless. I think they would say, which is really committee, if there's anything else you can think of, feel free to tell us. But they are doing everything they possibly can to try and alleviate this. I say, if anybody else has any suggestions that might be feasible, then they would be quite happy to hear them.
Thank you. Thank you. Thanks, Simon. That can answer your question to an extent. I don't think there's any other questions from the public. Okay, so agenda item 10, matters arising. In the bundle, there are probably 6. Unless anyone else disagrees, I think one can come off now, which is the dump and the spoil on the Eastcliff shoreline. I think we've done as much as we can do unless it rears its ugly head again. I think that can come off. Agreed? Agreed. Big Chuck proposed, I think, if we leave on, certainly until the February meeting, as it does say about specifying, hopefully still deliver ones, and our officers still currently looking at new options. Happy to leave that one on until February? Agreed. Number 3, I think that's pretty self-explanatory, but I think we should leave that on until further funding being installed. Certainly leave it on until February. Councillor Whiston.
Sorry, Chair. That obviously the other committee discussed the coordination as well. Is there something in the realms of progress roundabout and that sort of thing?
So as after this is generated, so leave it until February then for that update. Yeah.
See, for instance, deciding to encompass that, I think, as to whether Sheppey wards or Sheppey needs to join that active working group that is being discussed. Because obviously our residents have suffered very badly from the road post roundabout issues. But whether or not that fits into the remit of the project being proposed, I don't know. So I don't know, we can vote that as a maybe.
Don't so we can check the officer and potentially delay as an agenda item for February.
I don't think that the chairman, that fits under 3. So what is it?
In regards to the active travel coordinator as a whole.
The active travel is more to do with walking and cycling.
It is, yeah.
Yeah.
It's walking and cycling.
So I'll just bring Jen.
We could have it as a separate item, and I can ask the same officer to give an update on the Growhurst roundabout matter, but that could be listed as a separate item on this paper for the next meeting if you're happy with that.
So add a new agenda item for that. Agreed? Leave number 3 on.
Yeah, just a quick update on nature.
Yeah.
On the active travel, we arranged a meeting between the Greenway people. Councillor Winkler, one of others. And KCC have agreed to sort of fill a short funding gap, haven't they? And £2,000 for the,
I think it's been sorted.
it's been sorted, there was a funding gap, with £2,000 for KCC. And very kindly stepped up and said they'd fill that funding gap, so it would have now got the 6,000 they need. The reason I mention under this item is because it would. I think it should be the core. The others are doing should. The Greenway project, in my view, and so it's really, yeah, so it would be good, I think, under the active travel update, perhaps to have a Greenway update included. Can be provided by Adrian, who's in that group as well. So that would be very helpful. If members agree.
Yeah. I think that makes sense. Happy with that, especially what you said previously? Happy?
Yes.
Okay, the number 4, I think that can come off. Happy with that? Agreed?
Yeah.
5 and 6, Councillor Booth went back as promised, and he's given verbatim an answer on both of those. I think they both can come off.
So it needs to be implemented.
In what sense?
Well, 20 mile an hour in shares.
But the answer's there.
Why not?
KCC.
Yeah, KCC is the road authority. If they're going to be negligent and allow people to drive at all sorts of speeds, then as a taxpayer, I should be really peeved if the county then gets sued by people that get knocked over. Quite frankly, I think that's atrocious. As you know, I'm qualified in transport operation.
But in regards to this committee and those subjects were raised, I believe by Councillor Reid at last week.
I think Sheppey Town Council wanted to bring it forward.
It's gone back to KCC, who are the people.
Responded.
The booth has gone there to the office, and it's written response.
Yeah, but it wasn't a decision that was made this morning, was it? So why haven't we heard anything? So we can debate the matter. I think it's appalling.
In what sense?
Well, the shareness needs to be looked at seriously, quite frankly, so people don't get injured in various places. And for the county just to say, oh, we're not going to do it, or we're not interested, or something like that, there's a road authority.
It doesn't say that respectfully.
Yeah.
It does not say that.
So I've got all the hands, I will come to this promise.
I've actually seen it. No, why hasn't it been presented to Sheppey Town Council?
Because they didn't ask the questions. The question was asked in this forum.
Look,
and the answer.
if they're just going to argue, councillor, then there's no point in us actually having a meeting.
We're bringing it back in, Councillor.
We're trying to improve the area.
So 2 seconds, this just calm down. It's not even up for debate, in my opinion. It was raised, if I remember rightly, by Councillor Reid on behalf of the Town Council, Sheppey Town Council, as I understand, had raised both those issues. Councillor Booth is the KCC, and please remember, because my mind is blank, would go back to KCC and find out whether they could be an issue, whether it could be done or not. Councillor Booth's done that, he's come back and fed back saying it's not viable, book WL lines, how's it going to be enforced, there's no money, it's KCC, etc., etc. Totally get what you're saying, that's the point, but we're going back to the beginning, that there's no money in the pot to do it all. So we can keep discussing it, and I'm happy we can do a show of hands, we can keep it on there, and we could get Councillor Booth to go back again, and we can put it as an agenda item to be discussed in the next meeting.
If I may ask, perhaps the officers that are making the decision, or the cabinet member, or whoever they are now, that's making the decision, actually contact me.
Okay.
Because I used to work for a law firm 100 years ago, so I've appeared many times with judges and chambers. So I think I've got a lot of experience.
So there's lots of hands up now, so I'll hold that full.
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure it's Councillor Nunley that was first, and I will then come to Councillor Harris, then I think it was.
Thank you, Chair. In the response from Councillor Boats, it says any reduction of speeding is not part of a comprehensive consultation process. with all interested parties, this can be arranged by the 12 borough council, so it's absolutely still up for debate. Because if we haven't done that consultation as to whether or not people in Sheerness and the relevant stakeholders, like the police, think it's viable. And quite frankly, to say that the police are unable to respond to incidents of speeding due to their limited manpower struggles. Now, I accept that that's information that has been given to council Booth by the police. That's not acceptable. What else got, if it was the case that every single other crime that was committed was policed and dealt with really efficiently, maybe I could swallow that. But what crime is dealt with efficiently? Where is the police response? At the last area committee meeting, I believe it was Councillor Sheppey, raised an issue of indecent exposure at a train station, waiting over 40 minutes for a response. It's not a good reason to not do this is because statistically it's been proven it's not work. So just say that the police can't manage it, well, that's not the residents of Sheerness' problem. That's not the people who are getting knocked over by cars. That's not their problem.
Totally
We need
agree.
to do the consultation.
Totally agree with what you're saying, and we can go down that. Basically, we can vote on that and go down that. The reality is, prioritising police and whether people are going to 32 and a 30 or whatever is not a police priority. It's end on. There's not the funding. There's not the funding the CPS to prosecute a lot of cases. Speaking first hand, so I understand your frustrations. I hate it when people speed. I hate it when all the rest of it. But we've got to be rational and back to reality that no one's got no money. I think everyone around here would want to do lots of things, but we haven't got the money. I totally get what you're saying. I think we need to bring it back. I will come to council, we'll start, I promise. Of whether we keep discussing it here, or say, okay, right, we'll refer it to one of the committees in SBC, which we've got. That's one of the aims of this committee. So we can decide what we want to do. Does that make sense for now? I'll just bring in the other councillors and then we'll have I've got you as well, Councillor Whiting. Councillor Harrison, I think it's before Councillor Bristol.
These are matters arising. Matters arising, not items for a full-blown debate. The question was asked, an answer had been given. I personally have had this paper a week. If whoever asked the question wants to pursue it, then ask the chairman for an item on the agenda for a full report. We should be getting into it tonight, and the same goes for the next one. You've asked a question, you got the answer, you're not happy with it, you look at how you can take it forward. Not the matters arising and a full-blown debate at this time of night. That's not the way these, the constitution works, right?
Thank you. Are you about to echo what Councillor Harrison said? Okay.
Using his,
Jurisdiction. Yes.
we had a similar discussion in cases regarding Minster. And I was wondering if Councillor would agree that maybe the way forward here is to have a similar meeting between lady who's using the highways improvement plans for KCC, Sheerness Town Council, and himself, if you might be available at that sort of meeting, that we can develop this issue further in the direction that we can come back and answer some of those questions and report back to the Sheerness.
Okay. On that note, what I'm going to suggest is, Councillor Booth, from what your answer is, who do people go to? Who does Councillor MacDonald go to? Or Councillor Whiting? Either or.
Can you repeat the question?
So I'm stopping the debate now. We're not any more questions on it. That's the end of these. We're taking these off. Matters arising. I could totally concur with Councillor Harrison. In your opinion now, where should Councillor MacDonald, who feels quite strongly about this, as does Councillor Nundy, where do they go now from, in your opinion?
I think this matter can be taken directly back to the Swale Council, who can then initiate those conversations with Kent County Council with regards to a formal consultation.
And they can do that as SBC Council.
Yeah. I'm very respectful to.
No? That's what we'll do. I'll bring the two things. What would you?
It's not the road authority.
Officer wise, but we don't.
If it helps, Chairman, KCC has a procedure for type of things that these two minutes refer to, which is yellow lines and 20-mile-an-hour speed limit. And they are done by the parish and town councils through their highway improvement plans, which has been referred to. And KCC have, now in Eastchurch, they have a 20-mile-an-hour, they have yellow lines that are all there because of the highway improvement plan they put in place and agreed. It has to be agreed with the county councillors and then with the county council. And then the funding has to be found from somewhere. KCC don't guarantee to fund projects that are agreed, but it will agree with the parish council those things that it considered as a highway authority would be very good ideas to move forward. So I would suggest on both of these cases that Sheerness and Sheerness Clark was told it hadn't. So I think it would be better if Sheerness Town Council contacted, or through their clerk, contacted either myself or Councillor Booth, and we could create a meet. We can set up a meeting with the Highway Improvement Plan officer, Jenny Watson, KCC, and facilitate that so that they are able to take that conversation forward, and they can include as part of that plan two things here if they want the town borough, the town council. Does that help explain?
Thank you,
Chairman.
To me, that Councillor McDonald, is it a quick one?
I'd like to ask again, because Minster has a highway improvement plan, and I did actually for the joint transport board, but yet again, it wasn't put on the agenda, about the lower road, which is quite unsatisfactory, and that is in our highway improvement plan. So, you know, I need to contact somebody, a real person.
So that's not an issue. As far as I'm concerned, I don't think it's this committee, but for you to take back to the JTB and the chair of that.
That's right.
All right. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
You'll do that. Perfect. So back to the agreement. Those two taken off the agenda, off the minute. Done. Gone. Happy. Thank you. Item 11, local issues. Members, only issues I'd like to raise on behalf of the residents community in general. Councillor Worcester.
Each one of the staff who told me that the fences are absolutely fine. My issue is obviously that the puzzle blocks, I don't know the best way to describe them, between the ship on shore and Cheney House, which is where the Willow House is for. We see quite a lot of movement in that area, not facing the sea, but facing the water. Yes, it is, I don't know to see this. I'm just highlighting that we need to see lots of movement quite rapidly. And those rocks would come away and leave the carriageway, and that is obviously a major trunk road that was an issue to get between Sheerness and Minster. Very busy.
So what you're talking about, is that an Environment Agency issue? What you're talking about?
Told it's an EV issue. Like I said, the last time I approached that with the CFO officer, I just want to make sure I'm covering all my bases, because again, I can't effectively myself see why it's happening, but I can tell you that it's still happening, and we have got car park for the neighbours there as well. It's affecting us with that car park as well. I'm happy to take that there's no problem with it, but also there's no.
So where exactly are you talking about? I'm trying to picture it.
It's a big wall, it's a puzzle block wall, that lasts from where the red grade ends, towards where we sometimes see the speed camera sits.
Yeah.
It's the wall that sits underneath what you classically deem as seed bed. I thought it was a part of the seed bed, so I'm happy to be corrected. I'm also happy to be corrected around who's responsible for it.
So you're talking about the slope that goes from the seawall down to the road, that's got squares or whatever?
Yeah.
No, right. Okay.
But last time I reported it, came back as EV not got, one and seven with it.
And what's the issue with it?
It's moving.
Is it?
It's
Okay.
moving, and the edge of that wall and coming into the carriageway at some point as well, there's no interaction, and I tried the route that I thought would be most logical, but I have to raise it as a local issue.
Okay.
Because as a new councillor, I was stuck.
What councillor was saying, she's already spoken to the officer within Swell Council that would cover.
I can go back to
what Ian, you went to Ian?
Yeah, I can go back again and ask Jane if that's.
No, and I will circulate, I will double back internally as well.
I'm also changing my working practices to do something differently if I'm doing something. No, I'm quite happy to, because these are the unknowns, aren't they, for new councillors, just want to find their way forward, you know, or make it work somehow, so. On that really,
Anything else? Anyone else? Councillor Sheppey.
Yes, I did circulate an email today, and I talked with the town council as well. There's been a traffic amendment order, given a seal of approval by Swellborough Council for a loading bay to be placed outside the co-op in Queenborough. The loading bay is going to take approximately 3 car parking spaces, and it's going to be loading only 24 hours a day, which will then push cars further up the hill. There's already been a serious accident this year on that hill, and it didn't come to the town council for consultation. There was no consultation notice on that posts, and yet it went through, and now in the next 10 days it can be enforced. And this is just going to push traffic further down an already busy road and potentially cause more accidents.
Okay, Councillor Harrison.
If this is the TRO that's just come out, if you write in and say, yeah, because of A, B, C, D, E, F, G, and anyone else does, it will then go to the next JTB, because that's how I found out about one in Sheerness that went to JTB Monday night. And I think that's just the way, that's just the process, seems to be the process. Right into the officer concerned, well, just reply, because there is a post email address called
Engineers as well.
Yeah, and that would trigger a report to the transport. And
I just think
would stop it until it goes.
I just think it's a little bit backwards of us working when if that was sent out to town and parish councils in the first place, and we were informed that actually somebody's applied for a traffic order in your area.
Well, I certainly think you can take that with, as an SPC councillor, why that didn't happen. Obviously, maybe both hats on, but I don't know the answer to that. Maybe that's now.
I've been privy to the email exchange today, but yeah, I think we need to take that away from this meeting, if that's okay. I appreciate that you're raising it as a local issue, but it's not going to be solved tonight, is it? So.
Okay. Anything else? Perfect.
Just one more, sorry.
Okay.
I think it's quite important this area meeting, and probably the others, but I can talk rough, keep our eyes on the ball with the closure of the youth services and the children's centres. Given it's now that KCC have voted that's what's going to happen, we need to be aware that these people need somewhere to go, and there are going to be a lot of vulnerable people in our community that are going to need us. We just need to be vigilant on what's happening on our ground.
Thank you. Any matters referred to service committee for consideration? No, anything that's come out? No. So the next meeting's at the Sheppey Rugby Club on the 20th of February, 7 o'clock sharp, unless you want to take part in training with them at 6 o'clock. I'll leave that as an option. Have a lovely Christmas. Thank you for the way you conducted yourself. There's some great passion in the room, and that's what it's all about. And I thank you for going through me and conducting yourselves in a fantastic manner. Have a great Christmas. Happy New Year. And we close the meeting bang on 9:30, which is what we do as a committee. Thank you. Thank you very much. Okay, thank you.